Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 66.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and master Maine guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered master Maine guide, and in 1999 I founded the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident outdoors by using traditional skills, a few simple tools, and field-based experience. Whether you're looking to go from city slicker to competent outdoor professional, want to experience a remote expedition, or just want to learn a few new outdoor skills, we've got you covered. You can check out the show notes to this and all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. When you're there, click on the podcast button. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. Lastly, the best way to keep up with our programs and trips is to join our email newsletter, and you can do that at jmbnews.com. It is Sunday.
But not sunny.
The 2nd of June. Christopher and I in the guide shack, pouring rain outside. But we just got off a spell of beautiful weather. Did an overnight with the semester guys. We just finished week 5, but did an overnight poling trip on a nearby river. Beautiful little campsite, beautiful water. Good time.
Yeah, polling started to click for people. The place we camped out at had some nice little rips in front of it, and it was challenging but fun for them to be able to go up and down them and then travel with polling rather than it just being sort of just exercises on the river.
Right. The reason we do it is because it's a fantastic way to get around in this part of the world. That the woods are real thick. They cut really hard. You can't hardly, if at all, walk through after they've cut. And where they don't cut, it's really thick and there's a lot of blowdown. So the rivers really were the highways.
Yeah.
And then we're already beginning of June. The smaller streams are already probably too shallow to paddle most of the way. So with a pole, if you got 6 inches of water, you can maneuver a boat around, whereas with a paddle, you just can't.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we want to discuss the job. Yeah. Like some of I know probably what we do from the outside can look very idyllic, right? Mm-hmm. Guys up off the grid, living in canvas tents and cabins and, guiding people in the woods. From the outside, it can and does look pretty idyllic, pretty amazing, just about perfect. But like with everything else, as you zoom in and start to see the details, you realize that, hey, that sort of fantasy life that you have in your mind, isn't really represented in reality.
Yeah, and this was actually stemmed from a student having that moment as well. We'd all gone fishing, and then we went out to grab a bite to eat, and we're sitting and chatting and making jokes, and I think I offhand mentioned that I was tired, and I had been on, which is a term that we use a lot, that you're on, and mentioned that, and he kind of looked at me funny and goes, "No, we're just joking around. Like, what do you mean you're tired? Like, we're having a good time." And Tim and I both kind of said, this is while it's not that we're being ungenuine, it's still kind of like a character that we play when we're interacting with students. It's like you're in charge of keeping up everybody else's morale, sometimes at the cost of your own mental resilience. I don't know what the right term is for that.
Yeah, definitely your own energy level, right?
Yeah,
like you as the instructor or guide, you're responsible for instructing people. You're responsible for keeping an eye on everybody's well-being. You're responsible for trying to maintain the energy of the group. You're responsible for, if one or two group members get a little bit low energy, try to bring them back in. So there's a lot of soft skills that's always going on. From the student's perspective, it's probably going on beneath the surface. From the instructor or guide's perspective, it's ongoing, and that is, that's the job. When Christopher says, you're always on, that means you're not just relaxing, taking it in, listening to the birds sing. You're watching everybody. You're making mental notes on where everybody is at. You're thinking about how you could maybe explain it to somebody differently who isn't getting that particular thing.
Right.
So there's a lot of definite challenges, and you're never off duty. You're always on.
So we came up with sort of 8 that we kind of think are important to know, and that's the first one, is that you're never off duty. And like Tim just said, you're never relaxing and listening to the birds. Well, while on this trip, that we had a moment where Tim and I both were just sitting and relaxing and listening, and then a student cut themselves with a knife. And that, as soon as it happened, you have to come back on and deal with that. You don't clock out at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is no time clock. There's no whistle that blows at like 5. Mm-hmm.
But we should get one.
If we do, I want to get one and be like Fred Flintstone and the old Flintstone
Tweety
things.
Bird.
Well, I think Fred Flintstone would clock out and then he'd slide down the giant dinosaur tail.
And wasn't the clock like a screaming thing?
Yeah,
like a dinosaur that
and
screamed?
It bit a piece of stone.
So nice.
Get something like that.
We should.
Maybe an alligator.
What, bull shark?
Yeah.
Throwback to last episode.
So somebody, we're relaxing, end of the day, having a breather, and then all of a sudden, someone says, I'm bleeding very badly. Yeah. I just cut myself very badly. So, that little, although we did get a moment, I think that the moment, like the best part of the guide's day is when everybody's gone to bed and you can get a few minutes of quiet around the fire.
Yeah.
Or you get up super early and get to have coffee around the fire like 5 a.m.-ish before anybody else wants to get up.
Yeah.
So those are the moments of the day where you're not necessarily on. But other than that, you're on. Yeah. It's always ongoing. And especially with the residential long-term programs that we run.
Oh, for sure.
Be prepared to be woken up at least once or twice a semester with somebody who's got something going on.
Yeah. And it isn't even, that whole turning back on thing wasn't even that you're just dealing with this injury. You're also managing like the rest of the group and how they're reacting to it and trying to like keep them from maybe stressing somebody out. And it's a tough thing. It doesn't just, there's no like, you don't do a job and then kind of are done with it. It's an ongoing process for the whole length of it.
And again, we talk about soft skills and how important they are when you're in a leadership role. Being able to manage people, being able to keep them focused, keep them on task, or if something bad happens, to not dwell on it. I think right when he came over with the knife cut, it was initially, okay, let's, for me personally, it was, okay, let's, number 1, don't treat this like it's a big deal.
Yep.
Number 2, treat it like you see it every single day. Number 3, make a few jokes so that no one else is going to get all stressed out.
Well, I believe the safety shorts came out.
Oh, yeah.
The safety shorts immediately came out. So Tim has this pair of blaze orange shorts that we refer to as the safety shorts.
I got them for $1 one year.
And so as soon as this incident happened, that's rule 1, is like you make them comfortable and not worried, and you kind of keep everyone else from worrying them. And
what better to do that than the safety shorts?
So there's a moment where Tim and I are both talking to this student, and then Tim disappears, and then he comes back out and points down and just smiles at me. And I was like, oh, the safety shorts are here. Everything's fine now. And we're joking and it's funny, but that kind of stuff matters to the person that's, injured, and it matters to the people around him. If the 2 guys in charge aren't stressed out about this, why should you be, right?
Yeah. I mean, in medicine, they call it your bedside manner, right? And who was that? There was that doctor years ago. There was a Robin Williams film. Yeah, like Robin Williams.
Patch Adams.
They made a movie out of the guy because I never saw it, but
I
think I saw one of the stills from it. He was wearing a clown nose, right? That's all I know about it. And that's why I'm bringing it up.
Well, that's pretty much accurate, is that he was a believer in laughter being good medicine, I think was the tagline for the movie. But yeah, we're kind of, number 1 out of 8, and we're already kind of off on a tangent here.
Yeah,
this is good.
The tangents are what we do.
Yeah, it is.
But it was an interesting, you're never off duty. Yeah. That's number 1. You're never clock out. End of the day, you're still on, and you better be ready for anything.
Yeah, and I think a thing as we go through this list, like these aren't complaints. These are genuine things that you have to deal with. But as you can hear from Tim and I's sort of repartee about it, like it's not a big deal. It's the thing that you can, you laugh about it when it's over, but it's just the realities of working in this industry. It's not just, sitting in the woods and enjoying yourself. It's you're working hard every day in ways you maybe don't expect when you start doing this stuff.
Yeah. So number 2, that you're definitely a part of the group, but you don't have any peers necessarily. So like when everybody's sort of joking around, you can kind of join the jokiness and have fun with that. But you also have to be ready to switch gears, to rein people in, to get them back on task. So you can't be 100% part of the group.
Yeah, and the story we told to open this is a good example of that. Like we, up until that point, the student just kind of assumed that we were all part of one big group, and then as soon as you kind of see at another level that he had no real idea that the jokes and stuff were us working. Like he just saw it as us being part of the little community that's up here, and we are, but we just have to think about it in a level that they are not forced to.
Yes, you're wearing several hats at the same time.
Ooh, Toot Terror. Menace. I'm sorry, Toot Menace.
And that segues really good into our third one, and that is that you often have to make tough calls. You have to make decisions that are very unpopular. And I've probably made more unpopular decisions than...
Every day you make unpopular decisions, Tim.
For example, say we're out on the river and everybody's really hot to go run some rapid, and I'm like, we're not running it.
Yeah.
There's no, there's not enough water, there's this, there's that. And sometimes it's something that someone has looked forward to for weeks or months. And they're like, oh, I have my heart set on doing this, and you're like, we're not, from a safety perspective, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then, people will be very unhappy.
Yeah.
But that's part and parcel. If you're going to be in a leadership role as the guide, you have to make those decisions, right? People are putting their trust into you to keep them safe. But they also are putting their trust into you to sort of show them a good time. Mm-hmm. And often the two are, they don't meet in the middle. So, being able to make those tough calls. And, a few years ago, I think it was when you were a student, we opted to not run the St. John River, and a couple of guys were really hot to be on the St. John because it was a dry spring.
Yeah.
And the river just dries up. And I remember one of the guys had bought a few not inexpensive like lures and flies to fish the St. John because it has muskie, and he was just really, he was really not happy about not going. But when there's no water, there's not adequate water. There's not adequate water. So I made the unpopular decision, and we stuck with it. Yeah. So you have to be ready to do that.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing, even not even from a safety standpoint, but on occasion, maybe you're managing a group that is the skill levels are different, and you have to. So last summer, I had to make a call on one of my courses to end our time on trail a day early because one of the students in there just had no gas in the tank. He wouldn't have made the paddle back the next day, and so I had to shorten that trip in the mid thing, and the other students were much more, they were ready to be out there. They were really looking forward to it. And you just had to know that, that you were going to make somebody unhappy. And luckily it went fine, but that kind of stuff pops up as well where you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just have to be willing to make everybody, I have a saying I'll make you hate me. I will ruin your trip.
Yeah.
I will have you leave all sorts of bad, horrible things about me on the internet before
I've done it all.
Before I will let you get hurt on one of our trips, right? And you can't control things like accidents and whatnot, but you can definitely control putting people in a situation they're not ready for.
Absolutely.
So safety's number. What is it? No, safety's last. Selfies first.
Selfies first. Safety
last.
shorts second. Safety last.
So number 4 is that you have to be willing to be a beast of burden.
Yep.
And this is the physical side of the job. Say you get to a carry trail, maybe you're going to carry all the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Canoes, wanigans, big packs, big food packs, big heavy stuff. The very first year I started doing this, 1999, a friend and I were taking a small group out hiking in the mountains in western Maine. And a couple people, middle-aged people at that point. And I think we only had about a 4-mile hike into the campsite. But after about mile 2, I was carrying my pack, and I had 2 other people's packs on me as well because they were running out of gas. And I was, young and fit, so it didn't bother me much. But that's something that you can look forward to.
Yeah, it's
lugging everybody's stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that sort of a side thing of that is sort of a pairing between the last one, the tough calls, and the beast of burden, is that you're also kind of getting on people about taking their stuff. You kind of have to be the person that walks around at the campsite and make sure nobody forgot anything. And, on occasion, if they have forgotten something and they're already 2 miles down the carry trail, like, you're going to pick it up. And it's just, you're just...
Well, you should pick it up.
You should pick it up. That's fair.
I'm not saying that I always have.
Yeah. Oh, of course not. It depends on the situation. But, yeah, if
it's real heavy, I'll pick it up and then I'll sell it back to them.
What I mean is that if you're, if you've got, let's say you've got 2 students or 2 clients that are really fit, really hot to go, and they've already carried their stuff, and there's one person that thought they got all their stuff and they're halfway down and there's one more thing, I'm going to pick up that piece of gear and carry it because I don't want the 2 people in the front to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, getting frustrated.
Yeah, that's sort of the guide's dilemma, and it's very obvious when we're canoeing, but I think it's with any sort of recreational activity. That let's say if we were guiding and there were 8 boats of people, right? There's always 1 or 2 boats that are going to be way out in front, fit people. Maybe they're treating it like a race. And then there's always going to be 1 or 2.
What do you mean, maybe?
And there's always going to be 1 or 2 that are lagging way behind. Yeah. So your job is to try to, you want to attach an anchor to those boats out in front and put a motor on the boats in the back. You don't have that as a realistic option. So all you can do is kind of try to manage the group so that you can keep everybody in sight for safety reasons.
Actually, we do have that as an option now. And just because we haven't not mentioned it in the last, 20 podcasts, if we bring the moose mallet and give that to the people in front every time, I bet you they'll paddle slower.
Maybe, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Thank you, Kieran.
Number 5 is you spend a significant amount of time out in the fields, on the river, in the forest. That's time that you're not spending at home. So the ability to have sort of a normal life where you, at the end of the day, leave work and go home and be with your family or loved ones or whoever.
Yeah.
That's not a great... You really don't have that option.
Yeah, it's challenging. It's a really tough thing. It's a tough thing to manage up here.
We've had 2 instructors in the past who, were here, great guys, super talented individuals, but... just being up away from their loved ones got to be too much for a long period of time. So,
one of them's getting married in like a week. So, congratulations, Ben Spencer.
Yeah, congratulations, Ben.
We miss you, but
it's a hard thing to not be have the ability to be home at the end of the day every day.
It's tough. It'll wear you down after a while.
So number 6 is that there's always a bit of danger when you make your hobby your job, in that sometimes it will no longer continue to be your hobby, meaning you won't be as interested in it. So for example, let's say we just spent this week on the water canoeing a lot, and both Christopher and I love canoeing.
Yep.
But here it is, Sunday, we've got our morning to ourselves. You know what we're not doing? Going canoeing.
Yep.
Because just spent a week at it. So, if you do something all the time as part of your job, maybe it stops being as much of a hobby.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that can be remedied, but it takes work. You have to go out of your way to create. We did the Bonaventure last year as like instructors only trip for that specific reason, like that we want to keep enjoying this stuff. And it's not unreasonable to set that stuff up, but with what we just talked about before, with your time away from home being a big thing, like that's a hard thing to balance.
When you get time, maybe you don't want to be away from home.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's something that's maybe not.
Thank God for those country roads, though.
What?
Country roads take me home.
Pinkham Road, take me home. That's right. I'm sorry. I always mess that up. Yeah. Number 7. You, as the guide or instructor, are expected to know everything all the time. Meaning, you better know every plant, the Latin name of every cloud type, every track, every bug, everything that makes them tick, all the background information.
Every rotten piece of wood that they are like, what kind of wood was this? I don't know. I really am sorry. It's punky wood is what it is. I'll tell you that.
Like, know everything about every type of metal, every piece of gear someone might show up with. And, the expectation is, it's not realistic, but, that's what people assume that and, to add a bit of fun to that, you're constantly being compared with, celebrity X, Y, or Z who they've seen online or on TV, who has a team of writers coming up with all the stuff that talking about. So, you're just expected to almost be the third person omniscient.
The worst one for me was last summer. I had a teenager ask me why their phone wasn't charging, and I couldn't.
That's part of the main guide exam, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
diagnosing someone's technological
Yeah,
problems.
and I was like, I use a human ore composting system, and I live in a tent. What makes you think I can figure out why your phone's not charging? I did figure it out. I smashed his phone.
There you go.
And then it wasn't a problem anymore.
Yeah, now it's really not charging.
Now it's really not charging. I fixed it beyond repair.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You know, like daily around here. What plant is this? What plant is that? How is this plant different from that plant? Like just and thankfully, around here I do know all the plants, but that doesn't mean that if I go somewhere else, I will. Again, a couple episodes ago, all knowledge is local knowledge, so it's helpful to have that home field advantage and really know your local space.
Yeah, but even that, I think I know a good amount of the plants up here, but sometimes if they'll bring you like one little piece from something that they grabbed, an hour ago while we were walking and then ask you what it is, sometimes it's pretty hard to tell what that is based on, you're not seeing it in the context where it grew, all that stuff. It's a really challenging thing you can never stop, you can never learn a good amount and then stop that, because you have to keep adding to your knowledge base of the place you're in, because every time a student comes and asks me what a plant is and I don't know it, that night I go and look it up and make sure I, research it and know it for next time, because you can't stop and relax in physically or mentally.
Yeah.
Here.
That can, I'm sort of torn on that one. I think that's almost like a perk of the job, is the consistent lifelong learning, as opposed to I guess it's a requirement. But I do think that's a benefit to me.
It is a benefit, but the hard part is that you are, because we talked about, you're sort of the person that's in charge of the social stuff. You are, that's a place where you can lose people a little bit if they're like, oh, why am I up here and this guy doesn't know what this tiny little microscopic piece of lichen I picked off a tree is.
Because expert X on YouTube sure does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the point I'm getting at. Not that learning is a bad thing. I don't want to imply that, but that learning or having to learn to ward off, losing. Because if you don't have sort of the respect and trust of the clients that you're working with, stuff can go bad pretty quick.
Yeah, and that is definitely earned.
Exactly.
It is earned, not given. So a good point though that you make is that sort of an extra. I guess we didn't really call this one of our 7 points, but that you are the social director for the group. Yeah. Right. So, and you're maintaining your position there by being knowledgeable and useful to them. Yeah. The downside to that is that, as a part of that group, is that you have to laugh at some really awful jokes at times.
Yeah. Well, and you're also,
and I like to think that I tell the worst ones. So I
think between the two of us, there's some bad jokes going on.
I have a stable of some of the worst jokes in the entire world, so that I can always be known to make light of a situation with some of the worst jokes in the history of humanity. But, as being the guide, someone tells you a bad joke, you're trying to maintain that relationship with them. You're trying to, be the, for a group, almost be the social lubricant in a way to allow things to continue to function.
There are certain activities and tasks that we do up here that I can almost count down 3, 2, 1 from a point in the teaching to the joke that I know is coming. Not from, sometimes from Tim, but also from students. It's just I don't know, if it's polling and something goofy happens with the poll, there's going to be a joke about the poll, and you just know it's coming, and you can count it down, and you can, ideally, you kind of know who it's going to come from, and it's not that that's a person you've met before. It's just that that joke is easy and it's coming, and you just, I don't know. I get lucky enough that I get to kind of play the straight man up here, so I can roll my eyes dramatically. But the internal eye rolling is 10 times more dramatic, because I'm like, oh my God, I've heard it. I know, God. Yep.
Yeah.
I think I just had my first rant on the podcast.
That was great.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I don't know. I feel like I could have used it on
cathartic?
something. No, because I know the jokes are going to still happen.
Yeah, they
It didn't fix anything.
No.
Great.
But we've identified the problem.
We have. And we can surgically remove it. Anybody that shows up with a hint of humor, you're out. You're done.
Yeah. That's great. So yeah, those are our seven factors.
7 and some extra. I think I said 8 at the beginning.
Did you?
So this is gonna...
Okay, we'll call that last one number
Perfect.
8 then.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are our 8 factors
Yeah.
of why this isn't. It's not. It's definitely a job, right? The idea that I can imagine there maybe at some point these things live forever on the internet, right? So maybe at some point somebody's listening to this on like floor 100 of a high-rise building in a big city, thinking, "Oh, these two guys have it made out."
Yeah.
Living in cabins and tents in northern Maine and, having fun. And we do. And I think we do, and we do have it made, but that isn't to say that everything that we do up here is easy or fun and that it's not challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for you, but I can't imagine doing anything else. And, but the reality is if this stuff was easy and people could do it simply, we wouldn't have a job, Like it has to be. Yeah, the challenge is why people come here, and I'm comfortable taking that on if it means I get to go paddle and make jokes about poles.
Yeah, and truck stops, and
the whole kit and caboodle.
It's all there.
Yep,
it's all good.
It's all good, as long as that pole and the truck stop are on a wooden toboggan.
On a wooden
toboggan.
But you know what they say about inside jokes? They're only funny if you're on the inside.
Yeah.
And the wooden toboggan bit's an inside joke.
And it's not funny, even to the insiders.
Nope.
But that's okay, because wooden toboggans.
Yeah. So, great.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this one up.
We should.
So, thank you for spending this time with us on this rainy Sunday morning.
Yep, you're all we have this morning.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review, share it with somebody, help spread the word. We're actually, we record this. We're super low tech. We've got like a little handheld audio recorder, kind of like a little microphone. But we're almost to 100,000 downloads for the podcast, like in general. We've been putting them out. I mean, we sort of increased our production the last couple of years, but I think the first one was like 2010 or something. So it's been out there for a while, but, I am sort of shocked when I look and I see the statistics that I can't believe that many people listen to our marginally sane rantings.
Yeah, well, in going with the marginally sane rantings, as we're getting more and more people, Tim and I, over the course of this time, have been talking about advertisers. But not that we want people to advertise through us, just that we're going to make up our own advertisements and insert them into the podcasts.
For fun.
Because that's what we spend our time on. But yeah, that could be fun. So if you guys have ideas for weird things that we could advertise, let us know, and maybe we'll come up with a bit about it.
Maybe we will.
Maybe.
So thanks again. Hope you have a great day. We'll catch you again later. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.